So hi everyone, we're back again. My name's Marisol and I'm coming to you from Paramount Country in the Adelaide Hills. I've got Tim Deverell here with me today. He's coming to you from Darug Country in Sydney. And we just want to pay our respects to elders past, present and future. And today we're going to be talking about the current changes that are happening in the NDIS. So as of July 1st, 2026, so just a few weeks ago, we saw some big changes come into affecting SIL, like supported independent living. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat about that. And we're also going to have a chat about what to expect in January, because we know the NDIS has just announced that there's some more changes coming in January 2027. So let's get going. Tim, can you just tell us about what changes actually happened on the 1st of July this year?
So the big change that everybody's kind of missed, they got caught up in 10% reduction in community and participation for support providers, and they got caught up in a 50% reduction in community participation as well for support participants. But the big change, what everybody missed, was that everything now is evidence-based. And if you have no evidence to support the funding and matching your goals, your funding will be cut. And that's the way the NDIS are moving now. So you have to provide evidence, and the evidence has to be kind of validated, if you like. It can't be your neighbour writing a report for you and you submitting it saying that you have done such and such to match your goal. It needs to be reputable from a provider that the NDIS can validate. Yeah.
So you're saying that you get an NDIS plan, and in that plan, there's goals that are in that plan. And when you use your funding, like say you have a support worker that comes and supports you, the supports that they're doing must be linked to the goals that are in your plan.
Exactly. Yeah. If they're not linked to the goals in your plan, when the NDIS come around to do a review and they ask for the evidence and the evidence doesn't match the goals, they will just cut your funding.
Yeah.
Like they will go, well, you're not utilizing the funding to match your goals, so you don't need the funding, and they will cut it. Yeah.
And so these evidence-based reports are your providers writing reports to show that you are spending your funding in conjunction with your goals.
That's correct.
And so you did mention to me personally that there's a new system of requested reports coming in now. That's again everything becoming evidence-based. Can you just explain a little bit about these reports that the NDIS are now requesting?
Yeah, so on the portal now, the provider portal, if you're a support coordinator, it will tell you when you need to upload the reports. So you might have to upload a report monthly, you might have to upload a report quarterly, 6 monthly, or annually. And it tells you. And if you are overdue, it comes up bright red and it reminds you regularly that you're overdue for submitting the report. So the NDIS is looking at this. So they're looking at those reports to making sure that each quarter, let's say, you're matching your goals and the funding is working for you and helping you achieve your goals. If the report is late, that's a red flag for the NDIS. That means when they get round to the end of the year, if they're looking at a review and you've had 3 late reports and only 1 on time, then the NDIS are going to query and look at depth as to how you use the funding. That's the way they're moving.
So if they don't get that report, in their eyes, they don't know what you're funding, how you're using your funding, and they could question whether you're using your funding correctly.
Correctly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
And
is that why we're seeing plans just randomly being cancelled and suspended right now?
Yeah, so when somebody complains that their plan has been either reduced significantly or they've been put on monthly budget releases, funding releases, that normally means that the NDIS could not validate any of the previous funding against the goals. They couldn't validate it. So therefore they just reduced the funding and they put the pressure back on you. And just recently we've seen people where funding in their support category, like core or capacity building's been reduced to $1. Okay, and what that's saying is that the NDIS are looking at that and going, we know you need the funding in that category, that group, okay, but there's no evidence to say that you're using the funding to support that goal. And so what we're doing is reducing it to $1. Now it's up to you to go and get the evidence to show us that you need it, and then we'll reinstate it.
Right. So if they don't have any of their support workers or providers submitting those reports, then the NDIS doesn't know. So
that's correct. Yeah.
and
So
I imagine that's probably a big thing with unregistered providers and independent support workers. That most independent workers I know, I mean, I'm in Adelaide, and most independent workers I've known don't even write case notes. So I doubt that they're writing requested reports. They probably don't even know that they have to write these reports, or else they could risk their own participants' funding being cancelled.
So there's some really good independent support workers out there, and unregistered providers, and they do really good notes and do really good reports. But the point I point out to participants is, when the NDIS get the report from an independent support worker, and then they're getting a report from a registered provider, how are they going to validate that report? How are they going to prove what's in the information is in that report? So
you're saying like your neighbor could write that report and they wouldn't even know?
They wouldn't know. Yeah, they don't know who that independent support worker is. All they know is the name and maybe an ABN, and they don't know the background of that independent support worker. They've not seen their resume, their qualifications. They don't know what sort of business they're running. They've got no idea. Whereas a registered provider, they've probably gone through a few audits. They've got all the audit notes. They can check whether there's been any incidents, how they managed incidents. They can check whether there's been any complaints, how they manage the complaints. They can check all the verification ID for all the workers, for the directors, the owners. They can check the resumes. They basically, they've got this pool of information, and they can look at it and go, okay, we've got a report from them, and they're saying that this participant, this is what happened, and this is how they match the goals, and they can verify it. But the independent support worker, they can't do that. They can't upload. The independent support worker can send them off, the report off, but how is the NDIS going to verify all the information in that report?
Wow, yeah, this is a lot to take in, and I think a lot of people don't even know that this is happening. So 1st of July 2026, we saw the change with SIL. So can you just clarify what that change with SIL was? Because I know I've had a lot of people messaging, and I've seen so many comments on Facebook about, oh, I'm not registered. Can I still work with my client who's in SIL now? And so can you just explain about what changed with SIL and the whole having to be registered thing that happened the 1st of July?
So before the 1st of July, there was actually no SIL category. So it was part of daily living options, and it was the 0115 category code. They've now created a new category code. It's 0138, specifically for SIL, and along with that, they brought in a whole host of regulation and regulatory requirements. So the first thing is, from the 1st of July, you have to be registered as a SIL operator in order to run a SIL and claim funding for a SIL. Now, they are giving people who are already unregistered who have a SIL, they're giving them until the 1st of October to make an application for registration, and they have to have their audit booked to happen before the 1st of January. So if they aren't registered, if they haven't applied for registration and they haven't got their audit booked, come January, they cannot provide a SIL at all. If they haven't applied for their registration by the 1st of October, they can't provide a SIL at all. They will need to transition their participants to a registered provider. So if you come in today and you want to start up a new SIL today, you have to be registered.
Wow. So, and just to clarify this, because I think this is where it's been a bit confusing for people, but you're talking about SIL providers as in people who actually have the homes that are offering the supported independent living, you're not actually talking about workers themselves.
No, no, not the workers. So workers can still work in a SIL, but now one of the requirements, one of the changes from the 1st of July is they have to be trained to work in a SIL. They have to have a qualification to work in a SIL. So they cannot just walk in off the street and start working in a SIL now. That's one of the other changes, one of the requirements now for a SIL operator.
So independent support workers and unregistered providers, support workers can still go in, work in a SIL, but
Yep.
they have to have some sort of training or qualification that they can prove
Yeah.
to the NDIS.
Yeah,
Right.
and look, that's quite common amongst SIL operators in that participants aren't always happy 7 days a week with the way the SIL operator works, and they will call a third-party independent support worker, registered provider, unregistered provider to come in and take the participant out and do the activities that match their goals. So even taking them for medical appointments. So yeah.
And that's capped, isn't it? How many hours you can do with an unregistered provider that's if you're living in SIL?
In
Is it capped?
SIL, yeah, there's the maximum that you can go is 16 hours, I think, from memory.
As an independent worker in one
Yeah.
day with a person, that's the maximum you can do with them.
So they can't do one person can't do 16 hours
No.
straight.
Yeah.
But you could have two people, independent support workers, come in and take a participant out for a total of 16 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I think that kind of clears that up because there's been so much confusion about that. I've spoken to so many people and I don't know if I need to get registered or, but I mean, it seems like overall the NDIS is moving towards a national registration. I feel like they're just incrementally putting these things in to sort of give people the hint that's the way they're going. Do you think that is how they're going? Do you think it will be a national rollout for registration compliance?
It will be. So the initial proposal was to have 4 to 5 tiers of registration. So you could have one person, an independent support worker, looking after 3 or 4 participants in their neighbourhood, and they would have a very low cost registration, and then it would be tiered up to the full registration model, which is where we are. But the NDIA and the NDIS got frustrated with a pushback from the industry and from the sector. And because of that, they're now going full registration. So there will be no tiered registration anymore. They're pushing for full registration.
So they're putting their foot down.
They put their foot down. I just want to come back to a point with supported independent living around sleepovers. And because you have active and inactive
that's right. This was the other big change that happened.
Yeah, so this is a change that come in which affects people. So if you have an inactive sleepover, that actually includes 2 hours support in the 8 hours of the sleepover. And the support worker should get 4 hours either side to justify the sleepover. And so there's 2 hours of active support included in that. If you are invoicing somebody who's not in a SIL and you're invoicing them or charging them for an active sleepover, now that will trigger a plan review for that participant because active sleepovers can only be funded through SIL. So if you are doing it in a person's home, charging them for an active sleepover overnight, so charging them for the sleepover plus an hourly rate during the night, okay, that will trigger a plan review, and that because the NDIS will look at that and go, the participant should be in a SIL. Is that why they're having an active overnight? And then they will look at the whole funding. And if the participant shouldn't be in a SIL, doesn't need to be in a SIL, but you're still charging for an active overnight, the participant's likely to get their funding cut and you will have to repay your money. So, yeah.
Wow. And the other thing I think I remember you telling me was that you can't actually charge for an active overnight unless you are registered. That was a change that came in.
Yeah, so you have, because the active overnight comes out of the SIL funding.
That's
And
right.
so,
So you have to
yeah,
be a registered SIL provider in
yeah,
order to bill for an
be
active overnight.
active
So
overnight. Yeah.
everyone out there right now who is unregistered or independent and you're charging active overnight, you could be putting your participants plan at risk.
At
I think
risk,
that's a
correct.
really big thing to tell everyone who's watching this. Yeah, so well, that's really good to clarify that.
Yeah. And then, yeah, well, we'll go through other changes next time, but there's been quite a few changes around STA and the amount and the way you claim the funding for an
Okay, well,
STA.
maybe we'll leave STA for our next episode. We don't want
Yeah.
to overwhelm everyone because I want
Yeah.
to get on to the next topic, and I just want to briefly touch on it without going into too much detail. But January 2027, we've got some big changes coming then. People are confused what's going to happen. Can you give us some clarity on what to expect?
Okay, so we've got the main change coming around January 1st is one for providers. If you're unregistered, the hourly rate you can charge for social community and community participation is going to reduce by 10%. I think it's going to be dropped to $66.22 from memory, and that'll be the hourly rate, and that is not going to be indexed. So in 10 years' time, the hourly rate will still be $66.22 for independent support workers and unregistered providers in that group. And from the participants' point of view, they will be, as the plans roll over, they're going to progressively reduce the funding for our social community and community participation to by 50%. So if you've
Wow.
got a $50,000 budget now in core for social community and community participation, they're going to reduce it to 25,000. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So you look at
And
that combined with the cut in the hourly rate for the workers. It's a huge change. It'll make a real
mm,
impact.
So January 1st, 2027, a 10% cut to social community participation for everyone who's unregistered. You just won't be able to charge the full rate that's in the price guide.
Yep.
And it's never going to go up. So every year, 1st of July, our rates go up, but you're saying that that will not go up for unregistered providers.
Yeah, it's not going to be indexed to CPI. So for
Yeah.
unregistered providers and independent support workers. So
Mm,
if you're operating through, say, Mabel, so the maximum you'll be able to charge is the 66.22, and then you got to take out 15% from that to give to Mabel. I think it's 10% from the worker and 5% from the participant. So it's a fair chunk of money. Yeah.
Mm. And don't you think, like, to me, it seems that the NDIS is bringing this in and will probably incrementally increase that cut to unregistered providers and potentially roll it out across all core supports. Do you think that's something that's going to happen in the near future?
Yeah, they haven't flagged anything on that, but my expectation would be that they're trialing it on this
Mm,
social community participation. If
mm.
it works and it's effective for them, they will just roll it across to self-care and all the other
Yeah.
support groups as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel is happening as well. So it feels like they're really trying to squeeze out unregistered providers from the NDIS.
And independent support workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to they want amalgamations. They want to
Yeah.
have to deal with less people. So there's 270,000 independent support workers, unregistered providers, 26,000 registered providers, and there's only 735,000 people on the NDIS. So you look at that, basically everybody's got only one or two participants, one to three maybe at the most. And it's a lot of hassle, a lot of headache for the NDIS they've got to have a huge support team to manage 300,000 providers.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely. And
they want less providers so that it's easier for them to manage. It's just common sense.
yeah, because I know like the last federal budget came out and I think they said they were going to try to cut the NDIS by $37 billion.
Mm.
I think they were saying that the NDIS is now costing Australia more than Medicare itself and almost as much as we spend on defense.
Yeah.
So I think that's just so eye-opening when you look at it from that perspective. But yeah, I know there's the whole thing, the bill that's going through Parliament right now. I think there's some confusion around the changes that are happening now and that bill that's going through Parliament.
Yeah. So the NDIS last year, Bill Shorten, before he left, he made fundamental changes that got through Parliament. And so a lot of the changes with the NDIS now do not have to go through Parliament. They can actually just make the changes. They can announce them and implement them. They don't have to go through and get approved by both houses of Parliament. And so some people are confused with some of the announcements, thinking that, okay, the bill going through Parliament hasn't been passed yet, so all these announcements are not going to happen. But a lot of those announcements are going to happen because the NDIS has the power to implement them now. The bill going through Parliament is more to do with the funding and the changes on how funding is done. That's more what the bill is going through Parliament. It's been stalled until I think the 14th of August, but they've only allowed, I think, 3 or 5 days after that for discussion, and then they'll put it through to pass it. And it'll get passed. It will get passed.
So, what do you think that the NDIS is? I mean, this could just be just guessing, but what do you think is their strategy when it comes to cutting $37 billion from the scheme? How are they going to do that? We know that they've said they're going to cancel, what is it, 230,000 plans or something? So, I mean,
So
how are they going to, yeah.
they so how they're going to arrive at that number? It's partly through cutting people's plans, participant plans. So they're going to exit about 140,000 participants
Okay,
from the plan.
140,000.
They think they at the moment we're 735 and probably 740 now. 740,000. They're going to reduce it to 600,000. Okay, but you've got to remember that at the same time that they're doing that, there's people applying for the NDIS, and they are going to basically knock back another 150,000, 160,000 from applying. So people who are applying now for the NDIS going to be very hard to get on it. Very, very hard.
Yeah, look, I know why they're doing it. It's the fraud is just so rampant. I mean, I'm in Adelaide, and the stuff I've seen as a support worker and the misconduct and the abuse of participants, their plans and everything, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. So I understand why they're trying to, crack down on everything, but I also can't help but feel so heartbroken for the people who may be affected by these changes who really need the support. So yeah, it looks like we have very uncharted waters ahead. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
one of the things to remember is all these changes are not just about money. And people criticize the NDIS. It's all about money for them. It's not. I was at a seminar about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, here in the city in Sydney with the NDIS. And at that time, there was 100,000 participants. They had no idea where they were.
Oh,
100,000.
there was 100,000 plans
They were
and the
funding the
NDIS.
participants. Yeah, they were paying out the money every week for 100,000 participants, and they had no idea where those participants were.
No
And
addresses, no
they
contact details.
no contact details. They don't know where they were living, who the registered provider is. All they were doing was paying out based on an ABN, and unfortunately, a lot of unscrupulous people just keep changing ABNs. And if you've got a participant who's in a supported independent living and they've got an IQ of 5, you're easily manipulated, and they were just bundling them in cars, moving them from house to house. And yeah, there was some publicity about it at the time, but I think people have forgotten that in all the changes with the NDIS in terms of money, that there's actually participant safety.
Safeguarding, yeah.
Yeah,
They've got to increase the safeguarding of participants. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what they're trying to do. So we're working with the NDIS at the moment, our company, trying to find 7 participants for them. who have
Wow.
they've been moved from Queensland to Victoria and now back to Sydney. And we're working with the NDIS. And the interesting thing is the provider knows that the NDIS are
This is
getting close.
investigating. Yeah.
And he's actually using a VPN now to communicate. And I have a cybersecurity person employed, and they have traced it to Lithuania. He's fled overseas, the
Oh my
provider.
gosh.
Yeah, but
That's
at the
just
moment, still claiming the money from the NDIO. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about people going overseas and still be charging or going to participants' houses and, charging for feeding pets or all
yeah,
sorts of just crazy things that you see happening. So, yeah, it's just yeah, it's a lot to take in, I think, for anyone who's listening to this or any participants out there. I think, yeah, just to wrap up, I think our intention to start this podcast is just to inform people and not really alarm them, but just inform them of the coming changes because the only way we can protect participant plans is by being prepared for the changes as they come. So, yeah, for anyone out there who's needing support or guidance, I've started the Independent Support Worker Collective and working with Tim. And thanks so much to Tim, we've been able to create this project to bring on any independent workers or unregistered providers who are delivering high quality supports to their participants, but are worried about the registration rollout and they don't want to do it on their own. Just come and have a chat to us. We might be able to work together and collaborate. And Tim, I know you're over there in Sydney with Myndie Care providing support to people and also trying to safeguard people's plans. And I think you told me to date you haven't had any participants lose their plans, which is really great.
yeah. So we've been going 5 years, and none of our existing participants have had any funding cuts.
I
But
love
we've
that.
got people coming to us who have had funding cuts,
Yeah, yeah.
and the big difference is to do with the way you manage the funding and the reporting. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So look, we're going to keep doing these podcasts
yeah,
as nerve-wracking as it is to get in front of a camera. We both feel that, Tim and I, but we just want to really get this out to people. If you want to get in touch with us, we're going to have all our details in the description box below. Please like, share, and subscribe to these podcasts. Share them on your social medias and to anyone who you think might need the information. And please feel free to reach out with any questions or topics you want us to discuss. And if you're needing any help or you're struggling at the moment, we're more than happy to try and have a chat and see if we can help you in any way. But yeah, so I think we'll leave it there for today, Tim, and
yeah,
looking forward to our next discussion.
yeah. I am as well. Thank you.
Cool. No worries. Bye, everyone. See ya.
Bye bye.